Okay, it's recording now. So the question is, when you're making a complex terrain, you have an option of having primary or secondary, and or you have either primary, secondary, or and merge or append, and really you just pick one or the other for the primary or secondary. And when you're creating a terrain, when you're making a combined existing terrain, you just want to append it, because you're going to be adding, you're just basically adding those segments together to make one. And the only case when you would use merge is when you're making a combination of proposed with the existing tin file. So that's when you would use merge. And we can go into that later in the training, so I can show you how to make a proposed tin that merges with the existing.
Okay. And on my feature definition, do I continue it with boundary, or should I put triangles or contours?
So it doesn't matter. It's just a preference. Whichever way you like to view it, is whichever way you can go. Boundary or contours, triangles, it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right, I just created the complex model, so we should be good to go on my end.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anyone else? All right, so Trey, let's get this going again. Take control and let's start showing the new items, please.
Sounds good. So let me share my screen now. And so, did y'all ever figure out the Project Explorer issue that y'all were having in the previous section?
Yes, I'm going to find a way to circumvent that. So, actually, it's right there under your subsurface utility tool. There's the icon up on the, right underneath that to the left is the actual icon for it. So I was able to find it on my interface. And while I don't have it on a drop-down menu, I still have access to it. So I was able to dock it over to the side.
Oh, okay, awesome then. Yeah, I guess I forgot to mention that there's this icon here that's exactly what this is here. So, okay, so I guess we can get started now. So I remember when I was doing the complex terrain model, that I told you that I was going to tell you or show you how to fix some problem areas, I guess, in the terrain where it looks kind of weird. And I'm going to do that now. So I'm just going to bring in a terrain, and then I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the combined terrain that we made last session. So I'm just going to bring this in, and I'm just going to use existing triangles for this case. Okay, so this is done. Now we have our entire combined terrain here, and if you see in this area, we have some weird stuff going on over here, and this will happen sometimes. So I guess you really don't need to clean it up, but I kind of like to just to make sure everything looks nice, because it can get confusing when it is showing like this, and it usually does happen on horizontal curves. So if you have an alignment with a lot of horizontal curves, then it could end up being all warped and looking weird, and people might ask you why is it showing this way. So one way to fix this is if you go to, so it's going to be the edit terrain model, and we're actually going to need to make sure that we're in the 3D view for this to work. And it's loading. Okay. So I'm going to make sure that this is in the 3D view, and then I'll come over here, and then I'm going to use this edit terrain model. So when I click it, when I click the command, we have this box that comes up, and it asks me how do I want to edit the terrain model, and it's in this case it's going to be delete triangle by line, and there's other options that you can use for other different cases, but for this case, this is when you have some weird stuff going on and you want to get rid of it, then you're going to use the delete triangle by line. And then we just follow the prompts here in the bottom left, select terrain model, we click it, and then you're just going to click and drag a line, and then you'll let go, and it'll clean that up. So we'll do the same here, and cleans it up, and now it looks perfect. So now what I would do is, once you're done with that, you just export the 10 back to the original, just to make sure that it overwrites. So whoever uses it or sees it the next time will get these changes. And I found that this is a pretty cool feature that can clean up your terrain models. And you can even clean up the proposed terrain models the same way. And actually, in the proposed terrain models, you get even more interpolations like this. So other than that, I think that pretty much covers the terrain models, as long as you know how to create one from a tin file, as long as you know how to clip it into segments, and as long as you know how to make a complex terrain model. I think it's pretty much all the main things that you need to know. So now that we're done with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into showing you some other functions that OpenRoads has, and I'll go ahead and start with the horizontal geometry. I'm just going to create a new file just to start fresh. Okay, so horizontal geometry. So there's some key menus that I didn't tell you about in the first session, but that are very important. So one of them is this guy right here, the feature definition toggle bar, and you can pull out this menu by clicking here, feature definition, toggle bar. And I usually dock this somewhere, wherever you like is fine. And this is really important when you're making alignments or drawing, when you're basically using OpenRoads, because you want everything to be on a whatever definition or whatever the line is, you want the feature definition to match, right? So here are some examples of the feature definitions. In the roadway, we have like the edge of pavement and stuff like that, the shoulder, and in the geometry, we have these other classifications that you can use. And this is really important, so just make sure that you have this toggle bar somewhere on your screen that you can see it, because you're always going to be using it. And the next menu or toggle bar is going to be this one, CivilAccuDraw, and this is just as important. You can do a lot of really cool things with this little box here, and it'll save you a lot of headaches. So just make sure you have this docked somewhere. And to get to here, you'll go to Tools, CivilAccuDraw, and Activate Toolbar. And just dock this somewhere. So I'll start with some of the main line commands that you can use for the horizontal geometry, and I'll start with this line between points. And you see, as soon as I click on the line between points command, we have some options here, right? Either you can give it a distance and a direction, and it asks for a feature definition. So you can either pick the feature definition manually here, right? If I want to use geometry center line, I can pick it here, and that's what it's gonna. This is the feature definition that it's gonna use. I'll just draw a line, or you can use the toggle bar, right? And if you use the toggle bar, let's just do road edge of pavement. So if I use this road edge of pavement and I have this light bulb on, then whatever's here is going to be used. And you can see that here, right? I can't change the feature definition here. So this is pretty useful when you have a lot of line segments that you know are going to be on the same, or that you want on the same feature definition. So when I use this command now, then it gives me the symbology of the road edge of pavement. And then if I turn it off, then I have the option to choose again. To choose whatever I want. All right. So let me tell you about. Actually, you can also use this match feature definition, and it's basically just if I wanted my next line that I'm going to draw to be geometry center line, then I would click this match feature definition, click the line, and then you see it comes up in this box. And make sure the light bulb's on, and then you'll be able to use that. So if I want to switch it, then it goes to have my line. And this is another really useful function here, the command chains. and I'll show you how it works. So if I use a line between points, I'll go ahead and just do geometry. If I use this line between points and I click, if I click and then click out of it, then it ends the command right there, which is really not, it's not as optimal when you're drawing multiple lines, because I would then have to come here and snap to this line and then draw another one and then draw another one. But if the chain commands is on, then the software knows that you want it to be, you want them to be connected. So it's pretty useful, and if you know about this, then it'll save you time, because you won't have to snap to each line segment that you just finished drawing. Okay, so now that we're here, we can go ahead and jump into drawing. Oh man, let me see. So it just locked up a little bit. Shouldn't take that long. So when this is done, loading or doing whatever it's doing, we're going to use the simple arc, and then we'll tell the software which lines we want to create the arc from, and then we'll give it a radius, and we'll tell the software which tangents to trim, if you want to trim the back or the front or both. So okay, we're back. So all right. No. Okay, so now we're going to use the simple arc, and as I said earlier, it's gonna ask you which tangents you want to trim, and you usually use both. So we can give it whatever radius we want. So let's just go ahead and keep it at 100, and then we can change it. Can change it whenever we want. So yeah. So once you're in this command, you can always change the radius sizes, right? And then another thing to be aware of here that's really important when you're using these OpenRoads functions is, let's say for some reason I wanted to move this this horizontal point of intersection you would need to make sure to move this tangent first, because this tangent is connected to this one, right? So as long as I move this one, then everything gets, if I move it, then everything gets updated. And you can come here and change your radius value. You can come here and change your bearing, right? Change the length. It's really cool, and everything gets updated. But just make sure that if you're gonna move these PIs, then make sure that you're moving the tangent that's controlling the next tangent. And so we can come here and draw another one here. We can come here and move these. So and in this case, for these two tangents, we'd make sure to move this one since this was the first one that was drawn, and everything gets updated here. Right, so so another thing I wanted to show y'all too is it's something really cool that I'd like to show. I like to show people this when they're first learning about the software, because it shows kind of the capability of what the software can do, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw like a simple intersection here, and I'll just give it arbitrary. I'll give all the offsets and radiuses of the arcs. I'll just make them arbitrary. So I'm just going to go ahead and make. I'll use the match feature definition. Make sure it's geometry centerline. I'll use the active feature definition, and then I'll just draw some kind of intersection here. And there's this command that's pretty useful here that's called single offset entire element, or there's other options too. There's single offset partial and then variable offsets. So I'll just go ahead and use the single offset entire element, and what this function does is exactly what it says, right? So then it gives me the option to either key in the offset, or once I click my element, I can control it. I can control the offset. So I'll just do like, it's like really big numbers, but I'll just do like 500. And I'll make my feature definition a road edge of pavement. So this is my offset. And then it's going to ask me if I want to mirror it or not. And I'm going to say yes. And then I'll just do the same exact thing for this tangent here. Yeah, I'll just do that. And I'll mirror. So now I'm gonna place some arcs in here so I can show you how cool this software is. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do exactly how I demonstrated earlier. But you see what happens here? When I when I make my first curve, it gets rid of the tangent, right? Of these two tangents. But the software is smart enough to know that this tangent or this edge of pavement still continues, right? So if I want to make the curve for this side, then I'll go ahead and pick this little ghost line here, and then I'll pick the second edge of pavement. And the software is smart enough to know that to redraw the tangent that was previously missing, right? And we can just do the same thing here on this other side, which is really cool. And so now that we have our little intersection here, we can even, if we wanted to change our offsets, we could, right? And because I changed it at an endpoint, I changed it from 500 to 400, but this 500 stayed the same. And so if I change it in the middle, they're actually they will all be the same. So I can change these offsets if I wanted to. But the really cool thing about this is if I move this alignment, look what happens. Everything that I did stays. And this is the beauty of the software, because if you did this with regular lines and this alignment changed and one of these alignment changed, then you would have to do everything by hand again, which is not the best way to do it, right? So this is something that I always like to show people that are just starting, because this is only a fraction of what the software can do, and this alone is powerful. So now that we're done, now that I'm done showing this, I'll show you another function that I like to use, which is complex by PI. And what this does is, this is pretty much this function combines the line points command and the simple R command, right? And it'll give you a horizontal alignment with tangents and curves, just how it would be that we made this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and match feature definition to geometry center line, and then we'll use complex by PI, and I'll show you how this works. So and you choose these should, so really the first prompt so you fill out all this information and then you just read the prompts, right? So this is asking enter your first PI, right? So this would be your point of tendency on your horizontal alignment, or if your alignment, yeah, we'll just call it that for now. So if I click, that's my start point, right? And then when I click again, this is going to be where your next PI is. So you see how it gives me, it already inputs this curve when I'm using this command, complex by PI. So if I wanted to, right, and then we can just click for the next VPI, and then do the same. And when you wanna end it, you'll just right click. So now you have a smart complex element that you can move all these PIs. You can give it a certain distance and bearing, certain radius, change these tangents, do whatever you want to do. And so now that we've found out how to create a horizontal alignment using the complex by PI, there's also another way you can do it, which is the more basic, simple way, right? So I'll just and I'll demonstrate that right now. So we'll just go ahead and make some tangents and put in some curves. So actually I'll just do one. And you see, since I didn't have my chain command on, then it didn't notice that I wanted the command to stay or keep going, right? So if I come here and I with the chain command on, if I use it, then it automatically knows that this is what I want to do. So we'll just say that this is going to be my horizontal alignment. And so I'll put in the curves at whatever radius is. It's arbitrary right now. I'll just do 2,000 for now. So when I have these elements, the lines and arcs, or the lines and curves, the way that I want them, and I want to make this a complex, just like how this one is, we can use this command here, which is the complex by elements. And this is going to ask you which type of method you want to use. Do you want to manually select the segments, which is, and you see this little arrow here. This little arrow is important too, because this is asking which direction is up station, right? So that's what this is asking. So when it's manual, you're going to click each segment and make sure that the arrow is pointing in the right direction. And then when you're done, you just left click. And now we have our complex element. So I'm actually going to Control Z, and then we'll see what happens when we do automatic. So I'm going to do complex by elements, automatic. You can give it whatever name, alignment, whatever your alignment name is. And then I'll make sure that if this is going up station, then this arrow is pointing upwards. And it automatically knows that that's what I want, right? And I think this is a good spot to show y'all how to add stationing to an alignment as well. So if we go into another view and we want to look at the profile view of this, right? Because this is the whole purpose of OpenRoads, being able to see, dynamically see horizontal and vertical geometry. So if I want to look at this profile model, then I'll just click on the complex element, or it doesn't even have to be complex. But I'll click on it and I'll hover it, and you'll get these options here. And this is really important here. So if you click on the first one, you can change the name and change the feature definition, right? And that's really mainly what I use for the first one. So now we see that the name is changed, and I didn't change the feature definition, so it stayed the same. So now this this is where the open profile model is, and we can talk about this these other functions in a future session. So we'll go ahead and open this profile model. And so if you see, our arrows are going this direction, which is exactly the way that we wanted it to. But if you can also see, this has the stationing on the bottom and it has the elevation on the this has the stationing on the X and elevation on the Y. So we can see that our stationing starts at 0, 0 by default, right? But if we wanted to change that, then we'll just go to start station, this command here, start station, and we'll see what this prompt asks me for. So it's saying, what distance from the beginning of your alignment do you want the stationing to start? So we'll just say, I mean, I usually use 0, but in some cases you would use a different value. So we'll just go ahead and leave that 0. And then we can give it whatever stationing we want. And then we'll just locate the element. We'll either change the start distance or leave it the way it is. We'll left click again. And when we come into our profile view, we can see that the stationing got updated. And if you wanted to change the stationing, you just click on your element and you come here and I say, I want it at 800 now. And there it goes, it updates. So, can anyone tell me why there's some black and some blue in the profile view? Does anyone know?
Could it be to help distinguish where your curves are and where your tangents are?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. So the black is your tangents, and the blue are the curved sections, right? So let's see what happens if we make this radius. Let me come back here. You see how it got bigger? It updated. So this is pretty. It's pretty cool to know when you're in the profile view where your curves and where your tangents are. So and let me see. So if we were to use the complex by elements, and if we chose this direction as up station, then it would be showing us this point over here would be here, and it would be traveling the opposite direction. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you some more, or I'll show you another function that you can use if you're not creating the horizontal alignment, right? Because sometimes the alignment's already set and you have a GPK and you just want to bring it in. So in that case, we'll just come here under General Geometry and we'll say Import Geometry. So then you just map to your GPK, and in this case, we'll use this job 025 GPK. and this dialog pops up. So here's where all your alignments are going to be under the alignment. I don't usually use these other ones, so we don't really need to worry about those. So in this case, let's see, what am I going to do? I think I'm just going to do the US67 centerline, and I will import that. So something to be aware about when you're importing geometry to OpenRoads. So really, all you need is a GPK, and you can import all your geometry. But if I were to come here and just click this, US67, then if you see, it's going to come in with all the profiles. Every single profile that's in the GPK, if you just click this, because these are the horizontal alignments, right? Then you click the little plus, and then it asks which profile do you want to pick. So if you were to click all these, then it would give you all those profiles, which may not be what you want. It may be, for some reason, you have it set up that it would be that way, but I usually don't. So I'm just going to go ahead and just bring in the horizontal for US67 centerline, and I won't bring in a profile because we're not changing the centerline PGL on this project. So I will just make sure this create civil rules is checked as well. And I will import this. So now if I do a fit screen, you can see that this is the alignment for this project, right? And now we have all the information. We have all the information for this horizontal alignment that now we can use in whenever we're creating our 3D model to ultimately create your cross sections, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring in the terrain that we created, and let's see. So I'm going to bring in this terrain file here. So usually when we're creating corridors in OpenRoads, like I said in the previous session, we're gonna split it up, right? So we'll have different terrains for the corridor limits. But when I'm in my alignment file, which is what this is here, right? I would have the entire alignment with the entire terrain, or if you wanted to, and if your project manager was okay with it, and the people you're working with are okay with it, then maybe you split the horizontal and vertical up for those segments, right? But that's just a preference that we'll have to work out with y'all's staff. So here's the model that we were working in when we left off on last week. But if you see here, we have our alignment that I just imported, right? And can someone answer this question? If I look at this profile view, am I going to see anything? Am I going to see anything in here? Since we brought our terrain, are we going to be able to see the existing ground along this alignment? So
We should, as long.
What is that?
We should, as long as you're in the 3D view now.
Okay, so let's check it out and see what happens. Okay, so we'll open the profile view, and as we can see, nothing is here, right? So what went wrong? What went wrong? So the key, right, when you have a terrain and you have an alignment, is the terrain model. It needs to be active. You have to set the active terrain model, because you could have multiple terrains in one file. So how does the software know which terrain you want to see in all your elements, like your corridor elements and your horizontal geometry, horizontal and vertical geometry? So as soon as I set this active, that's when we see our terrain. So this is pretty cool here. Now, I know in this project we're not changing the PGL, except for in a small stretch somewhere in this project. But if you were going to create a profile, then you would use the vertical geometry. And since we are kind of running out of time, we can definitely come back to this the first thing next week. But these are going to be the functions that you'll use for the vertical geometry, and they're pretty much the same as the horizontal, only that they're in the profile model, right? So we have this line between points, we have the arc, we have the offset, we have the complex by elements. And in the vertical, we have profile line between points, parabola between elements, profile offset transition, and then you have complex by elements. So it's close to the same features. And you also have profile complex by VPIs, which is pretty much the same as complex by VPIs. So we can definitely start with that next time, just so we can go more in depth and see the intricacies of that tab. So one thing I want to show you before we end is sometimes you want to. Sometimes what I like to do is I will draw a line perpendicular to the alignment, just to kind of, and then if I open the profile model, then I can see what's happening in this section, right? And if I move this line and I just want to see something quick about whatever I want to see, like if there's a ditch somewhere here, I mean, we can see this ditch from the terrain. And what's cool is that the profile model updates with wherever your horizontal line moves. So this is a one way to kind of check the alignment or check the terrain to see if the contours or the triangles aren't allowing you to see what you want to see. You can always do that. And okay, so I need to show y'all something before we end, and this is arguably the most important. So CivilAccuDraw, where is it? So if I don't see it, then I'll just go to Tools, CivilAccuDraw, Activate, and here it is, right? So if I click CivilAccuDraw and I have this on, that means it's on. Then I click line between points, right? It'll ask me for this, or it'll have this dialog box. If I click 0, or not 0, O, the letter O, then it'll say select a reference element. And I use this quite often, so it's really helpful. So when you pick our alignment, now you can see that we can key in. The software knows that this is our reference alignment, and we can key in whatever we want. So let's say for some reason I have a ditch on this side. I'll have a ditch on this side, so I'll go ahead and do 0, 0, and then offset 120, and it goes for. So really, I'm just typing in these stations and offset, right? So I'll just have it go to 11, 0, 0, and 110. All right. So once I click out of this command, which is just left click, we can see that these lines are referencing the alignment, right? And these can be changed here, and these can be changed here to whatever you need. And this doesn't have to be a ditch. This can be an edge of pavement for when something's tapering, or anything else that you may need. But I think this is really important. We can cover it the beginning of next session, just to refresh y'all's memory about this, because this is really important. And if you use this, you can have a lot of control in where your horizontal elements are. But I think with that, we can open to any questions that anyone may have, and then we can finish this up.
Any questions, anyone?
I do have a couple questions, Trey, but I think I need to go back and go over the workshop to probably whittle down my questions a little bit better.
Yeah.
So really look forward to those recordings, and then I'll probably bring them up at the beginning of the next one.
Yeah, no problem. And if you want to get the questions answered quicker, then just send me or Raphael an email, and we can work that out and give you a response. So were y'all able to see the first recording, or did you get that video?
No, I haven't. Go to package that one with a second with this one as well, and send them both out together.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So with that, next session is next Monday, the 21st, at 1 p.m. El Paso time. Look forward